name is Rupert, and I'm here to talk to you about my project, which is entitled The Psychological Impact of Sports Injury and Rehabilitation. The reason I chose this project is because ultimately I want to further on to go into and do physiotherapy at a higher degree level and hopefully come out and actually go into the business of physiotherapy. I chose this because two of my other projects did seem to be unethical or unrealistic. One was involving alcohol and one was already used because of energy drink. Key references I'm going to be using for this experiment are a main journal that was taken by Brett Smith and Andrew C. Sparks, and also Weinberg and Gold's article about psychological impact of sports injury and rehabilitation. The associated bodies that I've been working with are I'm going to be potentially working on this project with any company that offers a physiotherapy style sort of clinic. So the two main places that first popped to mind were local businesses, so to actually get local insights into what goes on. So Fowler Hospital and the Swamppool Physiotherapy Clinic seem to be the two most obvious choices. But the two governing bodies that they were run by, NHS would be the main governing body for the hospital, and a governing body called Physio First is the other governing body for the clinic. But I'm open to actually involving more clinics and hopefully expanding more governing bodies as my study goes on. Associated research and recommendations is, again, I'm looking at Smith and Sparks' study, because it actually shows the detail of what I want to do for my project, whereas Weinberg and Gold will actually show me the material value of what I want to study in. Now, onto what I'm going to do with it. Ultimately, Weinberg and Gold, Brett Sparks and Brett Smith and Drew Sparks did a study on psychological impact of spinal cord damage. I want to try and backpedal this towards minor injuries. The reason for this is because I've looked through a lot of journals recently, and up-to-date journals state that there's nothing very significant on minor injuries. Most journals focus on major injuries or out of sport for at least 6 to 8 months, not a period of 6 to 8 weeks, which is the period of time I want to try and study on. Ethical review would be because since I'm involving people in this experiment, there's two major clauses I have to go under. One is that I have to involve a disclaimer that allows anyone to be using this experiment to have the right to have a degree of confidentiality. Also taking influence from the Nuremberg Address in 1947 that states that every person can't be forced into doing an experiment that you're involved in. They have to come willingly to you to actually be part of this experiment. Schedule of operations. On the handout I presented in front of you, there's a schedule of operations at the moment for what I've actually been able to do in the style of a Gantt chart. This shows that at this current stage I'm on time with actually completing the project on June 15th, which is the due time it's supposed to be finished. And I've got 2 subjects waiting to be interviewed, and I've currently finished interviewing 2 studies at the same time. Then contingency plan. If I'm not, excuse me, just in this one. For the contingency plan, there's obviously some things that can go wrong. For example, the clinic's not allowing me to actually use them in their studies. I thought about this because I have found, my godmother runs a clinic in Glasgow, a physiotherapy clinic in Glasgow. So only using her if I really need to, I could ask her to use some of her subjects in the study as well. So even though I wouldn't argue not want it because I wanted to focus on local, if I needed numbers or subjects, I could use her in a sensible way. And thank you for that. Any questions?
Just one that springs to mind is, have you focused on what level of sport you're going to look into? Because obviously,
There's a wide
participation.
yes, I have actually. There's a degree at amateur level.
Right.
Amateur is normally defined as the people who aren't actually paid to play sport.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who has that degree could be elite, but ultimately I'm going to sign on amateur sport level.
Okay. I think just want to be very clear with that, because obviously the psychological impact of an amateur to a professional would be
well, there is, one of the modern day studies I want to try and look at is actually debating an elite to an amateur and see the shit that they can actually do. I should have illustrated that.
Okay, so make that clear.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Do you want me asking, how are you going to quantify psychological impact?
Quantify it.
How are you going to
I'm
measure it?
actually going on quality data, so the quantity.
Did you describe how you would undertake that?
Oh yeah, I would take the subject aside, making sure that there is someone, making sure it's just him and I in a conversation, and record an interview. Actually, I should show. I'm taking questions that have been illustrated in this. I should hand this out to you. There are questions in here that I've highlighted that I'm going to re-amp into my own words, has allowed them to actually be asked to a general public, and allow them to actually take their result forward and relate back to a modern day theory of psychological injury.
Yeah, right.
Do you think a period of 6 to 8 weeks is actually a long enough period to...
6 to 8 weeks was the time I was actually going to get the subject in, but then I was going to further it, and then 6 to 8 weeks I can easily get the amount of subjects I want, but then putting all the work down, all their interviews. Realistically, yes, I think it is realistically manageable.
So, looking between the two, normally within sociology, you kind of have a focus on inquiry, and you're within social sciences, but within sociology, you normally have a focus on inquiry, and you go and have a look into something, and it kind of leads, it snowballs, and you're going on. With this kind of study, when you're looking at two particular participants, then are you going to have a hypothesis that you're going to look towards, or are you going to have a focus on inquiry that you're going to take it?
Ultimately, I was developing this project further to see if further project could be done to see if there is a difference between a team sport or an individual sport. If the psychological damage could be influenced more in a team sport or in an individual sport.
So you're looking at a hypothesis then from that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's something you're going to develop?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as the industry is concerned, where would the data you produce, where would it be best used?
It would be best used in most rehabilitation clinics, actually, because it's important to understand that most modern day physiotherapy, it's not just rebuilding the body that's important, it's rebuilding the mind, getting them back into a sport that originally they feel isolated from for a long period of time. So it's important to get them back in the mentality to go not straight back into a sport, but just rebuild themselves back into a sport instead of going straight off the rails.
I'm going to have to stop it there. Thanks so much. Thanks, Rupert.